you're still alive! I'm so happy!
Hello and welcome back to my comprehensive guide to all things Eidolon. My in-game name is weallivetogether.mp3. If you're a beginner, check out part 1, which also includes the frame modding. Chances are, if you click this video, you're concerned with min-maxing your Eidolons for the maximum numbers of runs a night, and this guide will show you how to do exactly that. This guide will be covering intermediate tips such as focus trees and arcanes, and advanced tips like lure teleporting and quick charging. It'll also include some quality of life tips that aren't exactly necessary, but will make runs go so much smoother. Same as with the first video, the reason I'm making this one is to explain the reasoning behind the meta instead of just telling you what to do. I think it's very important that people should be aware of why they're doing what they're doing. Starting with our intermediate tips, let's focus on focus trees. The two schools used in Eidolon hunts are Madurai and Unairu. Madurai is used mainly for Void Strike. What this does is, assuming it's max rank, each second spent cloaked in operator mode will add plus 12% damage to the next 8 attacks, whether Warframe attacks or operator attacks. This has no cap, meaning cloaking for 1 minute will deal 7.2 times damage, 5 minutes will deal 36 times damage, and 10 minutes will deal 72 times damage per shot for the next 8 shots. Firing once will reduce the number to 7, but the damage multiplier for those remaining 7 shots can still be ramped up by cloaking afterwards. Melee attacks will consume Void Strike charges, including slam attacks used to get out of Archwing mode. So if you would rather not waste your charges, feel free to unequip your melee when using Madurai. In order to unlock Void Strike, you will need to activate Void Radiance, but keep this skill at the lowest possible tier as it will speed up the rate of your operator's energy consumption. Volt, Harrow, and Trinity, or rather all the frames except for Chroma, will have Madurai and Void Strike activated. Its use will range slightly depending on whether or not the set of Eidolons you're facing is the first one of the night. For the first set, the team will load into the plains at sunset, before night actually falls, and charge up their Void Strike by cloaking in operator mode. Once the Eidolon spawns, each member should have more than enough stored up to one-shot the shields. There are usually 2 different strategies I see people using. The first is to go in the firing order of Volt, Harrow, Trin. Volt shoots the Terrorist and lets the Harrow know once they're out of charges. When the Harrow is out, the Trinity will take over. 8 shots per person, with 3 people firing, equals 24 shots. All 3 Eidolons only need 16 shield disruptions, leaving a nice safety net if the team didn't have enough time to charge all the way. The Trinity will have to fetch the lures, but they do have the option for activating Blazing Dash and Meteoric Dash. Using these, they can dash over the lures and thus damage them without spending charges. This does take up more time than sniping them, however, so some Trinities will spend their charges on the lures, and then during the Terrorist and Gauntless battles, they'll charge Void Strike up again, so that by the time the Hydralist rolls around, they'll have enough to drop its shields. Blazing Dash can also be used during the Vombalist call phase to help knock the Vombalists into ghostly form, charge the lures, and keep the Eidolon from healing. There is another option you can do as Trinity, but I'll go over that in the quick charge section. After the first set of Eidolons, however, you will not have the luxury of standing around and charging, so for all subsequent sets, everybody will be firing at the same time without taking turns. Do still be mindful of the Void Strike though, charging it up as much as possible before firing in sets of 8 blasts. After each Eidolon, empty any remaining charges and recharge while putting your shard in the shrine. As always, remember to take advantage of the Volt Shields and Unairu Wisps. A properly modded Chroma with the right team will be able to one-shot the Cenobias without the use of Void Strike, and on top of that, he'll need to self-damage for his Vex armor, so equipping him with Void Strike is not very helpful. Instead, the Chroma has Unairu for Unairu Wisp. At max rank, if Void Blast, your melee attack, damages an enemy, it is guaranteed to drop a Wisp, which looks like a small yellow Cetus Wisp. When picked up, it increases operator damage by 100% for 12 seconds. It will drop between the Eidolon's legs and is quite hard to see, and there's only 1 instance of them, meaning if 2 drop and 1 person takes both, another person will not see their instance of 2 wisps, like how resources work. So if multiples drop, do try to leave some for others. This will stack with Void Strike, but it will not stack with itself, so a second wisp will not add an extra 100% of damage, but it will refresh the time left in the effect. The Chroma will usually spam their Void Blasts and thus spamming Unairu Wisp right after they break a limb and before the Eidolons scream, and of course anytime right before the others start shredding shields. Basilisk Gaze will increase the area of your Void Blast, letting you do it from further back without accidentally picking up a wisp yourself. The hitboxes of the Eidolons are a little off the ground, which you can compensate for by standing on their foot, a rock, or in the case when they emerge from the water, void dash straight up and blast them while you fall. On the topic of focus trees, the brilliant and radiant Eidolon shards dropped by captured gauntlets and hydralisks can be exchanged for focus that does not apply to your daily focus cap, making Eidolons one of the best focus farms in the game. Brilliant Eidolon shards are also needed to unbind waybounds. Having all waybounds would be beneficial, but for Eidolons, prioritize Void Flow, which increases operator energy by 90%, and Enduring Tides, which increases operator HP by 150%. Next up, arcanes. There are 3 types of arcanes relevant to Eidolon battles. Amp and Operator arcanes, which can be purchased from the quills for sentient cores, or from Little Duck in Fortuna, and Warframe arcanes, which drop from the Eidolons themselves. For amp arcanes, recognizable by the word virtuous in front of it, you can only slot 1 into your amp, and there are 2 choices for which one to bring. For the casual Eidolon hunter, I suggest Virtuous Strike, which when maxed gives a plus 60% crit damage for 4 seconds whenever it procs, and it has a 20% chance to proc each time you land a crit with your amp. Since you should be critting pretty regularly with your amp build, you should get this to happen pretty frequently throughout the night. The second arcane, Virtuous Shadow, also gives a plus 60% crit chance, but it has a 40% chance to proc when you land a headshot, which means you can't passively wait for it to trigger on its own, but you must trigger it yourself, which adds a little bit more chaos to an already hectic fight. However, the serious upside to this is that by spamming headshots, you can guarantee that it will be active whenever you need it. Just remember that you will be consuming Void Strike charges if you have Matter-Eye. The best time to proc it is after the scream and while it's standing back up, so when the shields come back up, you're ready to go. A way of triggering this without expending Void Strike charges is Void Dashing the Eidolon's head, which counts as a headshot. It's tricky to hit, and you'll most likely need to hit it multiple times to proc it. Another way of triggering it is while the Eidolon's head is bowed close to the ground, stand underneath it and Void Dash the ground between its feet facing down. Each dash counts as a hit, so spamming it within the time window guarantees a proc. I'll link a video of somebody going over it in a little bit more depth. Moving on to the Operator arcanes, distinguishable by the word Magus. These can have 2 equipped, unlike the Virtuous arcanes, and again, there are multiple choices to pick from. A solid pick would be 1 Magus Husk for extra armor, and 1 Magus Vigor for more health. You can always mix and match with other options, like Magus Elevate or Magus Replenish. But in the end, I think Husk and Vigor give the most survivability. If you'd rather go for meme builds, however, Magus Melt, which you can get at Little Duck, is a viable option as it adds heat damage to your amp's blast, which, when it picks up the electricity damage from being fired through Volt's shield, combines into radiation damage, which is the element to which the Eidolons have a weakness. When using an amp with a second tier scaffold, the minimum number of times each shot damages the Eidolon is 2, 1 for the piercing bolt and 1 for the resulting explosion. Depending on where you hit the Eidolon, the shot can pierce through multiple segments of the Eidolon's body and deal 2 or 3 additional piercing shots, plus 1 explosion. Even if it only hits once, if you shoot through the Volt shields with Magus Melt, aim at a Synovia, and have enough Void Strike to drop the shields on the original hit, the second explosion in radiation damage can instantly shatter the Synovia. I'll also link a video to a more in-depth explanation of the Magus Melt tactics. The last arcane category we need to worry about is the Warframe arcanes. Again, there are 2 of them per Warframe. If you're going to be running pubs, solo, or don't have a lot of arcanes to choose from, go with Arcane Nullifier. It is a lifesaver for when it comes to the magnetic scream, or even if you accidentally fall into the water. If you have them add up to 100%, you'll never lose any energy from magnetic procs during the battle. And with the Warframe arcanes, each one equipped that is tier 3 will give you an extra revive. If you have been doing Eidolons for a bit, you'll have a wider selection to choose from. Chroma can have Arcane Avenger, Arcane Acceleration, or Arcane Momentum. And if you run with a reliable hero and don't need to worry about magnetic procs, you can replace Arcane Nullifier with Grace, Guardian, or Energize. Next up, Archwings. The Archwing of choice for Eidolons is the Itzel. The body for this was obtained from a Google Docs by Bleakwood and Lotus Eater that I will link in the description. The Itzel's 1 allows you to blink all the way across the plains in a matter of seconds, and its base flight speed is the fastest of all the Archwings. Its 2 allows for an immediate stop without any momentum, and blinking while your 2 is active will likewise have no momentum. Its 3, Cosmic Crush, pulls in all loot in the area, allowing you to collect your drops without spending time jumping around and missing that shard for the next stage. For the Trinities who don't want to use Blazing Dash to destroy the lures, the Itzel offers a very fast and efficient alternative. Fly within sight of the lure and cloak, then snipe the lure. Still cloaked and with your crosshairs still on the lure, blink to it. This allows you access to the hacking throttle, which is Cypher, set to the Y key as default, and all without dropping cloak or leaving your Archwing. Alrighty, time to make a lot of people mad. I'm going to talk about auras. Most Warframes start out with a Matterite or V polarity, and of the V polarity auras, Steel Charge is the most popular. However, Steel Charge gives absolutely no benefit to Eidolon battles, as no part of the battle requires melee weapons. If you are looking to do an Eidolon battle and your Trinity just doesn't have enough room to fit everything she needs to, format that aura slot so that you can fit Corrosive Projection. The ideal setup is 3 Corrosive Projections and 1 other aura. The 4th aura is usually Deadeye or Enemy Sense, depending on what you feel you need. Having 2 team members with a maxed Coaction Drift mod increases the armor strip to the maximum amount that you can get it, but anything more than 3 CP and 2 CD can ruin your armor strip. Why? Corrosive Projection strips armor away, but 4 CPs will completely negate it, turning the Eidolon's health from yellow to red. You'll want to avoid this because the Eidolon has robotic and alloy armor, both of which are weak to radiation damage, which is what you have your sniper rifles modded for. Radiation, quoting from the wiki, ignores a percentage of the target's armor and increases the damage dealt. Radiation damage is only reduced by 25% of a target's whole alloy armor, and the base damage is increased by 75%. So you get a plus 75% from the alloy armor and plus 25% from robotic. Both are also weak to puncture, but not as drastically, only 25% and 15%. Completely negating the armor will lose these weaknesses, and we want to keep as many advantages as we can. Speaking of radiation damage, let's take a look at the sniper rifles the Chroma will be bringing. As most people will tell you, the Lanka is by far the best gun for Eidolons on account of its high crit chance and crit damage, and also because it only deals electricity damage. This can be easily converted to radiation damage, and won't have any slash damage or whatever to get in the way. However, despite this, some people will find it clunky to use, as it's not hit scan. Its bullets will have travel time, and the farther they go, the more they will drop. It also requires each shot to be charged for its full potential. Because of this, those people prefer the Rubico and Rubico Prime. Unless you own an Eidolon Hunting Tier Rubico Riven though, it will not outperform the Lanka. But despite that, it is still an extremely effective weapon against the Eidolon if modded properly for radiation and crit. Remember, the Eidolons are immune to status, so building any of this, amps or snipers, for status is pointless. Another option that's rarely seen is the Vectis and Vectis Prime. It doesn't reach the high level that the Lanka or Rubico achieve, although the high puncture helps a little bit. However, the Vectis and Vectis Prime can be a quality of life replacement for the Trinity while she gets to lures due to its very quick reload speed. Another thing that places the Lanka above the Rubico is its combo counter. This is yet another tactic to add as much bonus damage to your shots as possible. Consecutive hits will increase the base damage, and missing will detract from your tally of shots. For the Lanka, 6 shots will raise your total damage to ×2, 18 will take it to 2.5. with each subsequent milestone requiring 3 times the amount of shots as the last one. Every 6 seconds without hitting anything will reduce the combo counter by 1. With the base Rubico, that time is 2 seconds, but its reload time is 2.4 seconds, meaning your combo counter will go down whenever you reload. The Rubico Prime likewise takes 2 seconds to reload. Regardless of the rate of decay on your weapon, be sure to build the counter. It works on the Eidolon when he is invulnerable, so shoot it during the Vongla's call phase and right before the final stage for extra multipliers. Another sniper tip is the fact that the crit chance will go up the farther in you have your snipers scoped. For the Rubico Prime, it's going to be plus 35% crit chance for times 2.5, the default one, and plus 50% for 5 times. For the non-prime Rubico, these happen at 3.5 zoom and 6 times zoom. The Lanka gives plus 20% crit chance at 3 times, 30% at 5 times, and 50% at 8 times. You can change the zoom level with the Alt-Fire button, default bound to the mouse wheel button. When purchasing ribbons for the Lanka, prioritize multi-shot and crit damage first, with critical chance, flat damage, and elemental damage, as in heat or electric, after those stats. If the Lanka ends up with 110% multi-shot, you'll shoot 3 bullets instead of 1. If you're running with a Harrow and have your scope at 8 times and shoot through the Volt Shield, you won't need any additional crit chance. So if all of the crit chance ribbons are completely out of your price range, don't worry too hard about it. Please note that the way Chroma's Vex armor works, flat damage will not have as big an effect as elemental damage, because the Vex armor Fury buff is added to the base damage like Serration. However, elemental mods scale off the modded damage, meaning that a plus 90% elemental mod calculates in Vex and Serration before giving the plus 90% of that value. So you get much more bang for your buck than if you merely added more flat damage, which has a very minor effect when compared to Vex's huge buff. For the Rubico, multi-shot, crit damage, and crit chance are priority, with damage and elemental damage secondary. For both weapons, things like reload speed, fire speed, magazine size, flight speed, they're all nice and quality of life stats to have, but in the end they will have very little effect on whether or not the Riven effectively one-shots limbs. However, everybody's playstyle is different, and if that firing speed Riven helps you enjoy the hunt more, go for it. Just know that Rivens with a negative, or Rivens with only 2 stats, tend to be more powerful than the ones with 3 stats and no negative. Just make sure that the negative isn't one of the stats you're looking for. Some places to look for Rivens, obviously Trade Chat, but if it's dead, you can always switch regions to see if someone elsewhere has what you're looking for. Riven.market has a vast stock of Rivens, but keep in mind that many of its posts are old, so if somebody never responds, move on to the next listing. r/wartrade is a good place for finding Rivens, as well as the Riven Discord server. Something both the Chroma and the Trinity will need to know is the lure teleportation trick. When traveling very quickly with a lure following you, the game will teleport the lures to wherever you stop, so you won't have to wait for them to crawl all the way across the map. If an Eidolon has a correct number of lures tethered to it, the moment the final blow is dealt to it before it starts its capture animation, it is considered captured. And lastly, the rewards from a captured Eidolon come from the lures, which explode once the captured animation is complete. Taking advantage of all 3 of these points, it is possible to teleport the rewards to the shrine and shave a few precious seconds off your hunt time. If you are Trinity, you can afford to hop into Archwing and drop an energy pad if you need it, while the Eidolon is still in the Vombless call phase to get ready for this. Then wait until you hear the chime that sounds once the final blow hits the Eidolon. Immediately blink over to the shrine after that, and the lures will follow you and break there. The Chroma will need to do this for the Terrorist if he's done a quick charge, as he has the 3 charged lures instead of Trinity. Fun fact, the first lure to be tethered to the Eidolon will have the rewards, so if Chroma only has the first lure, he can still reliably teleport it. Because of the quick charge, Chroma should be host, as host loads in first and loads out last, so he can get the lure while the others load in. A quick charge makes it so that a team can start killing the Terrorist almost as soon as they load into the planes. The conditions for this change slightly every time a major update comes out, but what it boils down to is that Chroma will grab the first lure while the other team members wait at the door to see this. They will help force the Vombless spawns, which in the latest update means void dashing to the slug. This causes them to spawn in this area, and once the lure is filled, the team can start breaking limbs. The most efficient way of juggling the lures is while Chroma, Harrow, and Volt are taking care of the Terrorist with a single charged lure, the Trinity will get 2 more lures and deposit them near the Chroma for him to pick up. One of those is to capture the Terrorist, and the one extra one is for the Cursed Gauntlet to keep it from teleporting away. After that, Trinity will get the remaining 5 lures, but will be careful to make sure the Chroma's 3 lures are charged before moving close enough to the battle for her 5 lures to absorb Vomblists, due to the Vomblist decreased spawn rate compared to earlier patches. Once the Chroma has teleported the Terrorless lures, he'll hand the remaining charged lure back to the Trinity, who will proceed as usual during the Gauntlet and Hydrants battles. Because of this 1-2-5 lure tactic, often for the first set of the night, while the Trinity is sitting on Void Strike charges, she will drop the Terrorless first shield before getting her 2 lures, and if the shield comes up while she's dropping them off, she'll drop that shield as well, so she can make use of her charges before spending them on the lures. As Trinity though, don't think you have to take down all of the Terrorless shields, your priority is always lures. If you want to do this as a Trinity for maximum efficiency though, do coordinate with your team so nobody wastes a charge on your shield. You can take advantage of the dusk charging time to hammer details out with your team. While in Void mode, opening the chat or pushing escape will lock you in Void mode for AFK charging for as long as you have energy for it. Some hunters will bring a Sahasha Kubra with the dig precept to dig up energy orbs every 20 seconds, so you can stay in operator mode even longer. With enough forma, these can be tanky enough to survive entire Eidolon battles, but many hunters will just slap the dig precept on them and just let them die during the Terrorlist. They will go down in loyalty and health, but if you're only using them for Eidolons, that won't really be an issue. If you do decide to tank yours up, the reliable energy is nice, especially if you have Arcane Energize. The other pet option is the Adarza Kavats. These used to be much more powerful because their Cat's Eye crit buff could affect operators, but that is no longer the case. They can still buff the Chroma plus 60% crit chance for 10 seconds, which is nice, but with most groups ends up being unnecessary. Very nice if you are trying to solo run the Eidolon though. You can also give them the Sense Danger mod to outline all the Vomblists both on the minimap and the actual screen to make hunting them down easier, especially with the limited spawns. And of course, you can't go wrong with slapping a Tech Assault and Tech Enhance on them while you're at it. For both Kavats and Kubros, make sure to unequip Fetch, which will mess with the Unairu wisps. Worm and Worm Prime is a nice choice of Sentinel if you equip the Negate precept on it, which you can buy from Cephalon's Smartus. This precept allows you to ignore status effects once every 5 seconds, so it's nice if you accidentally fall into the water, but it shouldn't be used instead of Arcane Nullifier or Harrow, because the Eidolon will proc 5 different status effects during its Scream phase, so Negate won't prevent all 5 of them, just the first one. You also have the choice of equipping Jin for the combo of the Reawaken precept, which you can also buy from Cephalon's Smartus, and the Sacrifice mod. Used in conjunction, you can pretty much have an infinite number of respawns from your Jin, which will prevent you from missing loot at the end if you run out of respawns. And now for a bunch of quality of life tips that aren't exactly necessary for doing Eidolons, but they'll make your runs that much smoother. First of all, when you put your shard in the shrine, double check that it says remove shard. Most times, if 2 people tried to put theirs in at once, only one will go in, so be mindful of that. As Bolt, after placing the 6 shields during the Vombalist call phase, hop in your Archwing and head to the far spawn point where you can pre-shield. Once you hear the capture chime, place a shield there, and void dash to the other 3 spots around the lake before getting the shard at the shrine. That's 1 at the far spawn, 2 at the Cetus side of the lake, and 1 on the other side. Having Naramon's Mind Sprint waybound and Zenerak's Void Flow waybound help with this, as Void Dash is usually easier to use when traveling along the lake. Doing this ensures that no matter where it spawns, your team can begin shooting as soon as they arrive. Depending on which amp your teammates are using, you'll be putting your shields in different spots. For pubs and people using the X77 amp, you'll put your shields right up in front of the Eidolon, in between its legs and looking up or stacked too high in front of it. For X27 users, put the shield right behind the Eidolon's heel, so that they can fire their amp through the heel, leg, and knee for maximum puncture multi-shot. Try to have a bright, easily noticeable color for your energy color to make it easy for your teammates to spot them. If you have enough duration on your build, you might be able to only put the shields down in 2 different spots, refreshing them every other time they're used, assuming the Chroma is taking advantage of the alternation tactic. Depending on which side of the body the Cenobia is on, when it breaks, the Eidolon will stagger to the opposite direction. For example, if the left knee Cenobia is broken, the Eidolon staggers to the right side. Chroma can take advantage of this by alternating the side of the Cenobias he breaks, left then right then left, for instance, to keep the Eidolon staggering back and forth between the same 2 spots. Doing this will also decrease the chances that the Eidolon will get stuck on the terrain and cause the game to auto-teleport it away, wasting precious time, since in most cases when it re-emerges from the body of water, it'll be invulnerable while it is coming out, unlike when it first spawns. For Chroma, if you want to use your 2 elemental ward, it will increase your survivability as well as your teammates. If you set your element to heat, it will increase your base health. Electricity will increase your shields, which is not really recommended for the Eidolon battle. Toxin increases your reload speed and holster rate, and cold increases your armor. For Harrow and more advanced teams that are dropping the shield and limbs instantaneously, be careful to keep your duration from 94 to 100%, and for 5x3s, 94 to 95%. Any longer, and Covenant will still be on cooldown when the next screen comes. Also for Harrow, push 4 right as the Eidolon stands up to apply the crit buff to the Chroma for the final blow. As Trinity, remember that the lures are following you, and try to keep out of everybody's line of sight unless you are shooting. Nobody likes lures blocking bolt shields. Several Vombalists actually spawn up against the Eidolon's torso right when he stands up from the Vombalist call phase, for when you're desperately trying to fill lures. And of course, if you're at the Hydralist stage, anyone can help kill the Vombalists, as you shouldn't be charging for Void Strike anymore. When capturing the Hydralist, after collecting the reward, try to hold the door open for your teammates. Standing at the painted Unum meat allows you to be close enough to the door to keep it open while still staying within the green extraction circle. But if you have time while waiting for the lures to explode, leave your K-drive against the door instead, as propping the door open before anybody needs to be near it saves precious seconds. Speaking of time, there are multiple websites that can show you time remaining in the night cycle, such as clockofelidolon.com, and hub.warframestat.us if you're mid-mission and don't want to wait until extraction to find out how long until night. If you find yourself doing Eidolons frequently, I would recommend Discord's Genesis bot. It can be programmed to send you alerts at specific times, such as 10 minutes before night or 5 minutes until sunrise. Links for all of these are going to be in the description. If you do find yourself running out of time and just need the Hydralist, you can capture him after sunrise by walking him. Simply don't break any limbs and allow him to wander away from the lake, and start breaking limbs only once you hear Onko's sunrise warning. By that time, the Hydrolith should be too far away from water to be able to spawn before you capture it. Just remember that once sunrise comes, Vombolists stop spawning, so make sure all your lures are fully charged. If you cap an Eidolon after sunrise, a notification will pop up saying bounty failed, but don't worry. If it was capped, you will still get all of the capture loot. The Eidolon was not actually killed. A huge pitfall for players new to the Tridolon meta is the temptation to pick up every single sentient core. If you're trying to do a 3x3 or higher, you'll need to save as much time as possible, so only pick them up if you're not immediately needed, like Hera once the last limb breaks. Once an Eidolon dies and you're either heading to the shrine or to extraction, do not wander around collecting them. You'll get more rewards from doing faster runs than from the random intact cores anyway, trust me on this. And lastly, in the quality of life tips is what I mentioned already in my beginner's guide. That's to build energy pads and bind them to a hotkey. I guarantee you will not regret that decision. And that just about finishes the comprehensive guide to Eidolons for intermediate and advanced hunters. I'll be linking a great Sapmatic video on the X23 versus X27 amps if you're interested in that. As always, practice makes perfect. Just because you know the best tactics doesn't mean you'll be able to do them right off the bat. And getting a reliable team that you're comfortable with is half the battle. The only thing I ask you to do is share this knowledge with newbies. The next time that pub asks what a quick charge means, instead of snapping at them, just explain it to them. Everybody has to learn this from somewhere. Just make sure theirs is from a positive experience. This has been WeAllLiveTogether.mp3, and good luck with all your hunts. Hopefully you learned something new.
The Eidolons, beautiful creatures of the night, graceful in their own way. Go anywhere near them and they'll crush you like a turd. Here you go.